So hey folks, I'm with Paolo. Paolo runs a company called ContentWise. ContentWise is into recommendations and making the user experience better using analytics and data and metadata on larger screens generally. So you work with a lot of the content providers. I'm sure you can do a better intro than I can, Paolo. So
we actually work with most of the operators of the different flavors in the market. So from over the top, so the new players coming from the internet, and with traditional broadcasters or ITV and cable providers. So on all the screens, from the set-top box on the first screens to the new players, coming from the web. So mobile, tablets.
Fantastic. So let's start off. I was very intrigued by a point that you were making in the presentation today, which is basically, the short-head content, the key content that everybody likes to watch, the big budget movies, and those guys don't really need help, right, for finding or for discovering, right? It's actually the stuff beyond that really needs help in terms of. Talk a little bit more about what the problem is that we are trying to solve in this.
This is a problem we have to understand, to sell the solution, because we get into an operator and the discussion, they typically paint black and white the recommended or personalized and not personalized word, and the claim is the best way to propose content is by popularity, and it's true. It's simply true. Numbers tells you that the best thing you can do, to promote very popular content is to create a most popular stream on the top of your. Netflix does this. They run a lot of data simulation. This should tell you something, but the real game is not there, because especially with movies or series, you are very quickly out of things to watch. And so the comment is there is nothing to watch when they have a library maybe of 60,000 titles. So the statement doesn't make any sense. So what is the issue? The issue is the limitation of resources, the scarcity of real estate on the screen or time. The thing is, we are not talking about librarians doing research. We are talking about people sitting on the sofa, on a nice sofa like this one, that want to entertain and enjoy themselves watching video. So the time to content is absolutely mandatory to make it short, because otherwise you spoil the experience. They stop watching and they go elsewhere. So going on the longer part of the tail for so many different reasons is the key thing to do, and it's proven by the numbers. We are a company that loves data, so we are data driven in everything we do. And despite the fact that sometimes you don't like the automated personalization, and maybe you mock what Netflix does with their very strange genres or whatever, what they do and what we do works, and works with real hard evidence. The business KPIs I was showing during the presentation.
So obviously a lot of this is driven by the so-called recommendations engine. How many times does somebody that you put something in front of actually click on it? That's the proof of the pudding there, isn't it, right? And there have been a lot of efforts that have been done into this. There's a lot of open source hackathon kind of efforts. The prizes, Netflix for instance was very famous for creating these prizes, giving out dollars, thousands of dollars, millions of dollars to people that created best algorithms and so on and so forth. In your opinion, for something that needs to work at scale and create something, how much of a rocket science is this, and how would it best work?
I'll tell you something surprising probably, because the reality is that the research and the algorithms and techniques that are used in the so-called recommendation space nowadays are a commodity, meaning that you can find the best algorithms as open source software. But
great point.
The reality is, once again, people like to paint in black or white. It's not recommended for you versus everything else. The thing is, every point in a complex user experience, you have seen this super long page I've shown in the presentation. Potentially every single entry point in that user interface designs could be slightly or a lot personalized. Let's take as an example. The example I love is the most popular. Most popular doesn't mean top 10. Right? Most popular maybe is a list of 30 items that are extremely popular or trending, but the ones probably I can be suggested to watch could be different with respect to yours. So a small re-ranking could potentially add a small increased value in the way that the content is presented to a single user. So the thing is, personalization is pervasive. So We have customers where every single item and touch point in the range of applications they deploy is controlled by a personalization or user experience engine. And that's the criteria or the game to play.
Fantastic.
So it's not anymore a content management system and, the little space for the recommender engine. That's the very old vision.
So it has obviously changed. So switching, obviously, there are two different types of screens right now that we're talking about. We're talking about the mobile, which tends to be intensely personal. It's your device,
Yes.
you do a bunch of stuff with it. And you're also talking about the television, which generally tends to be a household screen, particularly in emerging markets. Maybe in the first world it's changed a little bit to become a little bit more personal, but it's still something that you don't quite know who is watching in front of you, right? So obviously these are two different instances, and a TV actually captures a lot more of the viewing time and viewing space and other things, and it obviously generates a lot more money as well, right? So how do you see the experience of creating this personalization across these two screens differently?
Very different, and the share screen, of course, is much worse because we have this phenomenon that we call profile poisoning. That maybe you apply, very well known and reasonable heuristics like you build sub-profiles for the morning, the afternoon, where your kids typically, watch content. Maybe you do something smart, you adapt to this definition dynamically. But in the end of the day, sooner or later, someone would do something out of their typical usage and would poison, whatever definitions of profile you have created. So there's no easy way to solve this. The only one is actually, to transition to the idea that it's good to allow users to declare themselves even on the first screen. There are cable operators in the United States, very brave to start doing that, following Netflix. And what I typically like to say, the assumption is that this is very bad, because I think there are two wrong assumptions. One, that should be mandatory. Shouldn't be mandatory, should be an option. The second one is that users hate to make configurations. The reality is that if users get something in return, and quality of service and better content is typically a good way to deal with them, they have a great incentive to do so. So we don't have data because a little number of operators have done so far, but I think that more and more we'll see, even on the first screen, the possibility to declare it's me.
So is there a way for you to do that without the person entering it? Typically
Yes.
on a mobile you never need to do that.
Yeah, we do this automated day parting. So we create actually a hierarchy of profiles. We have the household, the generic profile. If you have, for example, the service spans other screens that are personal, we can keep people profiles, you, your wife, your kids. Or on the main screen, we can automatically calculate sub-profiles according to day parting. So the morning profile, the midday profile, the afternoon profile, and so on and so forth. And typically, if it's the afternoon, what you see on the screen is fed what typically is done on the afternoon, plus something else, a little bit more smooth and fuzzily defined. So this is very reasonable, creates good enough results, and eases a little bit of the problem I was talking about.
Fantastic. So you sort of service a lot of operators around the world. Yeah. What are the exacting parts of the world that you're seeing? Where do you see the most evolution and stuff?
It's biased because we are a European company, so of course we have a greater penetration in Europe. And Europe is currently, for us, for the over-the-top game, where that's our sweet spot in the market. It's fantastic because Netflix is deploying everywhere in Europe. So wherever Netflix goes, we do business. So we love them. That's the reality.
Fantastic.
And then we moved, actually, it's because this happened, we started doing business in South America. So it was few relevant operators there, and in North America. And for us, APAC is new.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So that's my first time here at Casbah. Fantastic show. We'll definitely come back later, next year, because it's the right place to do. But we started basically trying to do business in the region right now. We have our first two customers. One is public, one cannot be mentioned. It's True Visions, which is one of the sponsors of the show. And I think we'll do more and more. The reality is that for some reason, I don't know, when I look at the competition, they tend to target, all of them, the traditional markets. Everybody wants to do business in North America, right? But the way we see is there are really empty spaces in the Asian market. for, and you have a diversity of languages, cultures, so it's very difficult to penetrate those markets. But we like challenges. We like to be the first movers. So looking forward, the way I see, we'll do a lot of business in Europe. We will still do business in other regions, but the real battle could be Asia.
And that's the last word. Thank you very much, Paolo. Appreciate it.